Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This time we're really diving deep into the life of a legend, William Shakespeare. We're cracking open a biography. William Shakespeare, the eternal bard.
Ah, yes, the Bard.
See, even the nickname's legendary.
Yeah.
But seriously, it's just incredible to me, this whole journey of his. I mean, just think about it. He starts as a glovemaker's son in Stratford upon Avon, a small town.
You wouldn't expect it, would you? Such humble beginnings.
And then boom, he becomes this global icon. His works, they're everywhere, performed all over the world, still to this day. It's mind-blowing.
It is a remarkable journey. And it all begins in that seemingly ordinary town, Stratford upon Avon. So much of his life and work seems tied to those roots.
Right, right. The book really emphasizes that contrast, the small town versus the global stage. But here's the thing that really struck me, though. Even though Shakespeare's family wasn't wealthy, not aristocratic or anything, he still got a decent education at the local grammar school.
Ah, yes. That education, that would have been young William's first real exposure to the classics, to Latin, to rhetoric. Can you imagine him there, soaking it all in, captivated by the power of language, the stories?
Yeah. It really makes you wonder, was there something special about Stratford? Something in the water, maybe? What sparked this incredible passion for storytelling?
Well, who knows for sure? Perhaps it was a combination of things, right? His
Yeah.
education, definitely. But also, think about the stories and the characters he encountered every day, even in a small town like Stratford. It would have been a microcosm of Elizabethan society.
Ah, so that's where those seeds of his future brilliance were planted.
Precisely. Full of all sorts of intriguing personalities, dramatic events, Life itself was a stage.
Okay, so we've got this small town upbringing, a solid education. He's clearly got this talent for language, this love of stories. But I think the real turning point, at least as this biography points out, is his move to London in the late 1580s. That's where things really take off.
Now that's where things get really interesting, wouldn't you say?
Totally.
Just picture Elizabethan London. It was a bustling metropolis, just teeming with life and opportunity, And at its heart, this incredibly vibrant and competitive theater scene.
Oh, the book paints such a vivid picture of it.
Yeah.
And you can almost feel it, this energy. It wasn't just entertainment, was it? It was like an essential part of the social fabric.
Absolutely. Everyone from Queen Elizabeth herself to the commoners in the groundlings pit, they all flocked to the theaters. They couldn't get enough of it.
So in this environment, talent and wit were your currency, right?
Oh, absolutely. You had to be sharp. You had to be inventive. You had to capture the audience's attention.
And hold it.
And Shakespeare, well, he had all those qualities in spades.
He really did. So picture this, he arrives in London, this ambitious young man from the countryside, and dives headfirst into this wild world of theater. It's amazing. But let's talk about Shakespeare the man for a moment, because his personal life is just as fascinating as his plays, I think. First up, his marriage to Anne Hathaway.
Yes, the marriage. It's a marriage that has sparked endless debate among scholars,
For good reason.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Anne was 8 years older than William and pregnant when they married. Quite the scandal in those times.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I can't help but wonder how this relationship, with all its complexities, shaped his views on love and marriage.
Yeah.
Some scholars even suggest that we see echoes of their dynamic in his plays.
It's a compelling theory, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, just think about the wide spectrum of relationships Shakespeare portrays. The passionate and tragic love of Romeo and Juliet, or the more cynical, comedic pairings like Beatrice and Benedict.
He's got it all.
He does. He explores every facet of love, it seems. Marriage, family, it's all there.
And this leads us to another intriguing relationship, one the book spends a lot of time on. Shakespeare and the Earl of Southampton.
Ah, yeah.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because there are hints that the Earl might have been, the mysterious fair youth of Shakespeare's sonnets.
The sonnets.
I know. And on top of that, it seems likely he was Shakespeare's patron.
Ah, yes. Patronage. It was crucial back then. A wealthy and influential patron like the Earl of Southampton. He could provide so much financial support, access to those powerful circles.
Could make or break a career.
Absolutely. And who knows, perhaps even inspire beautiful poetry.
It makes you wonder, what was it like for Shakespeare to have his work performed for the Queen herself? Talk about pressure and privilege.
Indeed. But, you know, beyond these individual relationships, there's one that was absolutely pivotal to Shakespeare's career. His connection with the Lord Chamberlain's men, later known as the King's Men.
Right. His acting company, they weren't just like a group of actors, though, were they? More like his theatrical family, his artistic home.
Precisely. This company gave him a platform, you see, to showcase his work, to collaborate with a talented troupe of actors who could truly bring his words to life. Just imagine the creative energy in those rehearsals, the collaborative spirit, the sheer excitement of seeing your words transformed into a living, breathing performance.
Oh, absolutely. And he wasn't alone in this theatrical landscape either, was he? The book mentions two other key figures, Christopher Marlowe and Ben Jonson, sort of the rock stars of their time, wouldn't you say?
Indeed. Marlowe, a contemporary, perhaps even a collaborator at times, clearly had an influence on Shakespeare's early work. And then there's Jonson, both a rival and an admirer. Can you picture these literary titans pushing each other, challenging each other, shaping the course of English drama?
I'd love to be a fly on the wall for those conversations.
Oh, wouldn't we all? I imagine them in a tavern, debating a particular soliloquy over pints of ale, a masterclass in Elizabethan wit. But all of this, it was happening against a backdrop of immense political change.
That's right. We're talking about the golden age of English theater,
Yeah.
Flourishing under Queen Elizabeth I. The book even mentions that Shakespeare's company performed at court. He had to be aware of the political climate, how it could impact his work.
Oh, absolutely. And it wasn't just Elizabeth. The transition to King James I as patron, well, that further elevated the company's status. And this proximity to power, this firsthand view of the machinations of court, it gives Shakespeare a unique understanding, an understanding of ambition, of loyalty, of betrayal, themes that run deep throughout his plays.
Yeah, like in Macbeth, right. That play's practically a case study in, how unchecked ambition can lead to downfall.
Precisely. Shakespeare wasn't just writing entertaining stories. He was dissecting the human condition and often using royalty as his lens.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And here's another interesting tidbit from the biography. Shakespeare, the playwright, the poet. He was also a shrewd businessman. He made some pretty savvy investments back in Stratford.
He did. He became quite a man of property, actually.
It seems he had an eye for opportunity on and off the stage, building a legacy that extended beyond the footlights.
Exactly.
Which brings us to his later years, to those incredible late masterpieces like The Tempest, which many see as his farewell to the stage.
There's a real sense of reflection in those later works, isn't there? A deeper understanding of life, of mortality, and of the power of forgiveness. And then this remarkable figure, this literary giant, he chooses to retire to Stratford, returning to his roots. It's quite something.
It is. It's like he's saying, I've explored the heights of human drama, I've seen the world, and now I'm coming home.
A fitting end to an incredible act.
But of course, his story doesn't truly end there, does it? Because his impact, his influence, it only seems to grow after he leaves the stage. His legacy, well, it's still being written.
And that's what we'll be exploring in the next part of our deep dive. The enduring legacy of William Shakespeare.
Stay with us.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Before the break, we were talking about Shakespeare retiring to Stratford. It's almost as if he stepped off the stage and, well, straight into legend.
Yeah, it's true. His influence didn't just fade away. It actually seems to have amplified, But how did this happen? I mean, how did this small-town boy become this global phenomenon? What's the secret sauce?
Well, you have to remember, Shakespeare didn't just write plays. He practically reshaped the English language. This biography really dives into that, It highlights how he coined, or at least popularized, so many words and phrases we still use today.
Okay, you're going to have to give me some examples. I'm ready to be amazed.
Break the ice, heart of gold, in a pickle.
Wait, those are from Shakespeare? Really?
Oh, absolutely. Wear your heart on your sleeve, green-eyed monster.
No way. I use those all the time. It's mind-blowing how much of him is woven into the fabric of our language without us even realizing it.
Exactly. But it's not just the words themselves. It's how he uses them. His real genius lies in his ability to tap into those universal human experiences. Those timeless emotions and struggles we all face.
Yeah. The book really emphasizes that. Like how his themes, love, ambition, jealousy, power, They're all just as potent today as they were, what, 400 years ago?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because, well, they're fundamental to the human condition. I mean, think about it. Who hasn't felt the sting of betrayal like Othello, or the pangs of unrequited love like Romeo, the crushing weight of ambition like Macbeth?
No, but
These characters, these stories, they transcend time because they reflect our own inner lives, our own battles, desires.
yeah, it's like you're looking to a mirror, right? You see yourself in these characters, even though they were written centuries ago.
Exactly. And it's not just the themes, it's the characters themselves. They're so complex, so flawed, so real.
Yeah, like they could walk right off the stage and into our lives.
Right, from the tortured Hamlet to the quick-witted Beatrice and Benedict. Shakespeare's characters, they aren't just archetypes. They're living, breathing individuals, grappling with their own internal conflicts, contradictions, and that makes them relatable even after all this time.
Which is probably why, his works have been adapted and reimagined so many times. I mean, we're talking classic stage productions, modern films, operas, graphic novels, even video games. It's crazy. What do you think makes his work so adaptable, so universal?
Well, the biography makes a really good point about this. It emphasizes that Shakespeare's work, it isn't static, it's malleable, almost like clay. Each generation can mold it, you see, to reflect its own concerns, anxieties. It's constantly being reinterpreted, recontextualized, which I think proves just how timeless these themes really are.
It's like each generation finds its own reflection, right? Like
Yeah.
we've seen countless versions of Romeo and Juliet, right? Each one captures that core theme of love and conflict. But they also speak to the social norms and the cultural values of their own time,
Yeah, precisely. And it's not just Western culture either. Shakespeare's performed all over the world, in Japan, China, India, South Africa.
Wow. His reach is truly global. That's incredible.
Mhm.
What do you think is the key to that global appeal, to that ability to transcend cultural boundaries?
Well, I think if we look at the bigger picture, it's the combination, right? The linguistic brilliance, the deep understanding of human nature, and that adaptability we were just discussing. He gives us these characters, these stories that resonate on such the deeply personal level, regardless of your background, your beliefs.
It's like he's holding up this mirror to humanity, showing us our strengths, our weaknesses, our triumphs, our follies.
And he does it with such eloquence, such poetry. It's like he elevates storytelling to an art form that transcends time, transcends space. It's quite remarkable.
It really is. But, even with all this acclaim, all this global recognition, there are still those who question the authorship of his works. The book mentions this briefly, the authorship question. Could you shed some light on that for our listeners?
Of course. Well, it's a fringe theory, really. It's largely dismissed by mainstream scholars. It's this idea that someone other than William Shakespeare actually wrote the plays and poems we attribute to him.
Okay, so who are the alternative candidates and what's the evidence they're using?
Well, the most popular alternatives include figures like Edward de Vere, the Earl of Oxford, and Francis Bacon, the philosopher, the statesman. They argue that Shakespeare's background, his humble beginnings, his supposedly limited education, they couldn't have produced such sophisticated works.
But the biography we're discussing today, it makes it clear that the vast majority of scholars reject those claims, right?
Exactly. While there might be some debate about, specific details of his life, maybe the chronology of his plays, the overwhelming consensus is clear. William Shakespeare of Stratford upon Avon, he was the author.
So it's less of a legitimate academic debate, more of a conspiracy theory.
That's probably a fair assessment. I mean, it's always healthy to question, right, to explore different perspectives. But those inquiries, they need to be grounded in evidence, in sound scholarship. And in the case of the authorship question, the evidence simply doesn't support those claims.
So back to the man himself, Shakespeare, actor, playwright, businessman, and ultimately this literary icon who continues to shape our world. What a legacy. But what's next in our deep dive?
Well, in the final part of our exploration, we're gonna shift our focus from Shakespeare the man to Shakespeare the enduring phenomenon. We'll delve into what makes his work so captivating, so enduring, and why it continues to speak to us centuries later.
Sounds fascinating. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've gone from Shakespeare's, humble beginnings all the way to this global stardom. But I think now the question becomes why? why are we still so captivated centuries later? What makes his work so relevant in, in our modern world? It's Shakespeare.
It is a question worth pondering, isn't it? It really is. And, it's fascinating to me how even after 400 years, we're still grappling with these same themes, the same questions that Shakespeare explored in his plays.
It's like he could see right through us.
Yeah.
The core of human nature. Like he had this uncanny ability to see those timeless dilemmas that just, well, they transcend any particular era.
Exactly. And that's precisely why I think Shakespeare continues to resonate with us. His plays, they aren't just these dusty relics. They're vibrant works of art. They speak to the human condition in a way that feels both universal and deeply personal at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Our biography, William Shakespeare, the eternal bard.
Yeah.
It really hits on this point. It argues that Shakespeare's, his enduring legacy is not just his language. It's not just his mastery of words. It's the adaptability of his work, how it can be molded, shaped to fit all these different contexts and cultures.
I mean, think about it. His plays have been performed, well, everywhere, from grand theaters to, makeshift stages, bustling cities to tiny villages. They've been translated into, countless languages, adapted for film, television, opera, ballet, you name it.
It's like his work is this ever-evolving organism, taking on these new forms of new meanings as it encounters all these different cultures and perspectives. Each generation, it seems, finds its own reflection in his plays.
That's a brilliant analogy, and it really highlights that incredible malleability. That's what ensures his continued relevance. They aren't static monuments to the past. They're dynamic, constantly evolving, engaging in this dialogue with the world around them.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a key takeaway for our listeners, right?
Yeah.
Shakespeare isn't just something you study in school. He's a living presence, in our culture. His words, his ideas, they continue to influence how we think, how we feel, how we interact with each other.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to approach his work actively, to ask questions, to challenge those traditional interpretations. Find your own meaning. Don't be afraid to wrestle with the complexities, to embrace the ambiguity. That's where the real magic lies.
I love that. Embrace the ambiguity. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of William Shakespeare, I want to leave our listeners with this Shakespeare's journey, from those humble beginnings in Stratford to this kind of literary immortality. Well, it's a testament to the power of art. It reminds us that even in the face of adversity, creativity can flourish. Imagination can truly change the world.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And on that note, I encourage you all to continue exploring the world of Shakespeare with open minds, with curious hearts. You never know what insights, what inspiration awaits you.
Wise words. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Until next time, keep diving deep.